Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Legacy Running Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Sarah, and today I'm so excited to go over a different approach for hip impingement, labral tears, hip dysplasia when it comes to a return to running approach. And honestly, I feel like whenever I do these episodes, people are just like, oh my gosh, this is such a breath of fresh air, or like, I have not thought of these things. And it's so curious to me because this is just like kind of my day to day, what I live, what I breathe. Honestly, not dissimilar to when people are like, oh my gosh, which I'm not discounting this when they're like, oh my gosh, I feel so alone in this journey. I'm like, it's crazy because I had 20 people message me today saying that they got diagnosed with labral tear and they're also in a similar boat. So if you're listening to this, I hear you, I see you. I've created these resources to help you feel less alone and more empowered. But today, honestly, is really inspired off of one of my clients. We'll call her Amy. Amy has been honestly a very normal client within my world, but I posted about her story on some of my social media and I had such a big uptick of people being like, oh my gosh, how did she do that? How did she get back to running 90 minutes after being diagnosed with bilateral labral tears, not being able to run consistently, and not really, honestly, for a period of time, being able to walk comfortably? So today I kind of want to walk you through literally what we did and how we got her to not running consistently and comfortably to now training for the Boston Marathon. She just finished a 90-minute run and absolutely crushed it. I'm literally so proud of her. And I always say it's so funny when we make the shift of like, oh my gosh, how much should I run this week, to like, oh my gosh, how much should I fuel this week for this run, or what's my inter-run fueling strategy? Because we know as runners, once we're hitting that 90-minute mark, we want to be having an inter-fueling strategy. So that's just a really fun milestone for my clients. And I'm really excited to kind of talk through the tactics of what we do in the Empower Hip Coaching program that got her to this point. So let's honestly start from the very, very beginning. And that is, let's just say like diagnosis, or like kind of once the pain starts and once you decide to like take the approach. And one of my, or multiple of my favorite people in the hip space actually come from Australia. So Australia has such a wide breadth and depth of research and knowledge specific to labral tears, hip dysplasia, and hip impingement. There are so many people like on the frontier that are just really in the hip space in Australia, also in the UK as well. But they have really like informed my both physical therapy and coaching practice. And I have just really been able to learn a lot from them. I always share this story, but like when I first got into physical therapy, but really like I was practicing physical therapist for probably about 2 years. I saw my first labral tear patient and I was literally crapping my pants. Like I was like, oh my gosh, I'm going to break this woman. I don't feel like we learned about this in school. I do not understand what to do. And it really took me about a year of mentorship to be very confident. And then just as I continue to work with people and just learn from different people in this space, it's really blown my mind at how not textbook these things can come across, or how specific and individualized care can be. But what I have really been like just blown away with or impressed by with the Australian system is that really the standard for labral tear care, at least in their research and what they're kind of promoting for or pushing for, is 6 months, which is crazy. I remember when I was in physical therapy for my hip, the specific insurance that I carried, which was ironic because I worked for a physical therapy practice, only allowed me to have 6 to 8 visits. And then I needed to get reauthorized to get more visits. When I got reauthorized, I probably got like 4 more visits. So if we're talking about, 12 visits to physical therapy, I would go in probably about every week, every other week. That would get me to 3 months. And that was it. And that was like really getting authorized for more visits. And then honestly, from there, it's like with the specific insurance company, it's kind of like a ticking time bomb of like, you submit for more and you get like 1 or 2, and then it kind of gets cut off. Not that that's everyone's case, but that was just like genuinely my specific case and the kind of thing that I was up against. But in Australia, nonetheless, the standard is 6 months, where it's okay, this is kind of like the goal, like big picture mindset of like 3 months of like acute care where it's like you're coming in once a week. Honestly, like in this initial phase, sometimes pain can be so high that I'm like, honestly, like maybe come in once every other week and just kind of give people to like tactics and stuff to do at home so that they're kind of getting that like clearing pain point out if we're worried about conserving visits. But again, I'm just getting a little bit too in the weeds here. But 3 months of like just very consistent coming in, that's kind of when we're expecting there to be a lot more pain. Like you're not going to be, potentially running as much as you want, or even like kind of going about your day-to-day things. Like I think it's kind of a fair assumption to be like, this is going to be kind of a protective time. We're going to like promote healthy movement. Like those are just kind of things that in general in physical therapy in those initial months that I'm thinking of. And then from there, at that 3 month mark, as long as we've been consistent with progress and consistent with home exercise plan and not like pushing things out of the, too much, I'm really anticipating that my clients are going to feel a lot better. And I will say this, like, honestly, at this point in my career and kind of where I stand with my business, I don't see a lot of acute labral tears. I mean, if I have like friends or family members that are like, I think that this is what it is, they will for sure contact me. And like, I kind of help them through that initial phase. But honestly, like people are so knee deep in the hip world that a lot of people are coming to me even post this. So I just share that to say that like, I think there's a lot of misinformation on like what to do in those early stages. And I think just finding someone who is really passionate about working with the hip or knows labral tears, or you can even call them and say, have you helped a woman my age with an acute labral tear before? Do you have anyone that has experience with that? I think it's like great to get in early and kind of start to just get some suggestions of what to do. And like, I think it can be really medical in this time. And I think you can make amazing progress, at least mentally, of like expectations and knowing what to do that initial phase. So gosh, I could do a whole podcast on this initial phase, but like those first 3 months are like so precious. And like, I think just the earlier you can get in, honestly, the better. Work with someone who knows what they're doing, who feels confident with it. Like, again, I will put myself in the gutter and say, I did not know what I was doing when I was a new grad PT. Okay. Like, so it's okay if you're like, I like my PT a lot, but I don't feel like we're really making progress, or I'm not really sure what to expect here. So that's the initial phase. In getting out of acute pain, getting back to activities of daily living comfortably, maybe getting back to walking like longer distances comfortably, being able to like squat, kind of get into different positions, just do things at maybe a more active level. I think that's the anticipation and maybe expectation for kind of that 3 month time frame. But again, it's not specific to time. It's going to be specific to like how you have been educated to progress. So from there, 3 months to 6 months, the goal now is, okay, you're out of acute pain, hopefully, and now we're going to kind of introduce you back to the things that you want to do or the things that you like to do. I'm going to be speaking to active women, runners, weightlifters, strength training, all of that stuff, because that's kind of my bread and butter here. And I think in this phase, the goal is to like kind of integrate back into those things. Like, okay, you used to have a lot of pain with squatting, but we've, cleared that through working together with physical therapy. Now maybe it's like, yeah, let's get back into squatting and let's kind of practice that with weight. If it's running, maybe it's like, okay, one time a week or twice a week, we're going to run a couple times, at this specific duration. And we're kind of just getting back into the things that you want to do. With my Australian colleague who was talking about this in specific to hip dysplasia, he was talking about like a lot of CrossFit athletes of like, okay, like we're getting back into CrossFit, but we're not going to go back to going to CrossFit 6 days a week. Like, let's go back maybe 1 to 2 times a week. And like, these are the specific things that when you're there, you can go for, like bilateral jump roping, like jump roping with both feet, like that felt really good for you in the clinic. Like, let's go do that. Or, maybe it's squatting and, like a tip I love to do is like, if you're going to load a squat, like maybe squat to a box. So you like, it's kind of just forces you to have really good form. Basically what I'm getting at here, without being terribly specific, because it has to be really specific to you, is from that 3 to 6 month mark, it's like, okay, let's not see each other as frequently, because we've cleared you out of that acute pain phase. We've worked on some of the specific things that you need to kind of reintegrate back into your activities of daily living and like your recreational community-based activities. And then let's kind of integrate you into those things and let's see what maybe isn't working or what maybe is working. For example, like if you go to CrossFit and you're like, I had a client like this who was like, deadlifting's really uncomfortable for me, or lunging's really uncomfortable for me, or heavy squatting is. So it was like, okay, those are the things that we're working on in our sessions, so that when she's going back to that, she's like, oh yeah, like I feel more comfortable in this class. Okay. So at this point, 3 to 6 months mark, we're like trying to get back to the things, troubleshooting when they don't go amazing. And then at this point, it's like the goal is that you're kind of like reintegrated back into the things that you want to do. And that's kind of like the goal. And then from there, it's like you have your person established. And then from like 6 months to a year, maybe it's a check-in once every 2 months, just to kind of see how things are going in general. And I love this method. I'm like, this is so phenomenal. Like, I feel like we just are getting an ounce of kind of what this is in America. And I love that this is kind of the standard, or the hopeful standard in Australia. And even so, I think there's still a gap. And if you're listening to this, maybe you start to, or maybe you're like, yes, Sarah, I think there's still a gap. And I'm just going to say, like, for myself and also my client, Amy here, which I changed her name. Her name's not actually Amy, but for my client, Amy here, like, there really is a gap. Like for her specifically, she had done acute physical therapy. She had actually been in cash pay, sports-based, high-level physical therapy for her labral tears to get back to running, and still just felt like she wasn't getting the specificity of what she needed to get back to running. And honestly, this is where I really believe that my coaching program kind of comes in, my framework, we'll just say, kind of comes in to play to really help runners go from like, okay, I'm back to maybe running run walk intervals. I'm back to maybe running 15, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, even an hour. I'm back to some strength training, but I don't know how to build. Like, I don't know how to build to run consistently for, this year, or I don't know how to build to potentially train and race a race that I want to do later this year. I don't know what strength exercises to do besides the one that I was given in physical therapy. And this is really where this method that I'm going to go over today is going to talk about. It's the Empower HIIT method: discover, develop, deploy. Let's talk about it through the framework of my client, Amy. So let's break this down into 3 sections. So she was actually like really at that 6-month mark, if not a little bit further along. At the 6-month mark, we are going to start with the discover. So we'll go walk through discovering kind of what she needed, developing what she needed, and then deploying what she needed. So getting back to being able to train consistently with running. And I'll kind of talk about some pitfalls of like what she was doing and some like perks of kind of what we did together. So from the coaching perspective, when she started with me, we started with the discover phase. Now, in every section, I'm going to break it down into 3 different sections that we're going to hit on. So the first section is going to be, we'll call it like stability and strength training. It's a little bit more specific than that, but I'm just going to oversimplify it. Stability and strength training, mental, like her mental thought process, performance, like fears, anxieties, all of these things. And then running, like her running volume, how much she was doing, her running hygiene, all of these things. So when someone's coming into my coaching program, the things that I'm looking at are, okay, like what is your stability and strength like in specific to running? Amazing that you've been working on stuff with your PT, but like, how are you performing with metrics that are very specific to running? Anytime that someone works with an excellent personal trainer, they're not just going to be like, yeah, let's progress your overhead press and get your shoulders really strong. What they're actually going to do is they're going to do a functional movement screen and be like, can you lift your hands up overhead into that position? If you can't do that, then we're not going to load that really heavy. We're actually going to make your shoulders stronger in a different way. It's the same way that if you're going into a run and strength coaching program to get back to running comfortably, we just want to make sure, like, do you have the underlying mechanics that your hip needs to be able to run? Some of the things I like to run through are like single leg hopping, single leg squatting, heel raise kind of endurance, hopping side to side, maybe some side plank variations, seeing like, okay, not only can you do these things, but can you do them through a full range of motion, and can you do them with good form, and can you do them for at minimum of 3 sets of 20? Like, we want to see, do you have good form over a long period of time, not just are you super, super strong with doing them. Like, we want to have that good foundation so that when we get into the strength training, you are like very strong with those things. So Amy came to me and she was doing a lot of heavy strength training and plyometrics. But when I looked at her single leg squatting form, her single leg plyometric form, she still was pretty wobbly with some of those things. And I was like, we can't necessarily load these super heavy until you're able to do them for a long period of time with good form. Like, that has to be kind of the precedent for her. So instead of doing really heavy strength, we kind of backed off with some of the single leg heavy strength, kind of focus on the foundation and the mechanics of it. And that is where I was like, yeah, we need to start there as opposed to really heavy and all of this heavy plyometrics that you're doing. Looking at the mental category for the Discover phase, honestly, she was terrified. Like, she was really afraid. Like, walking for a long period of time, running in the past, like the near past, was extremely painful for her. And for her to overcome this and overcome all the things that she wanted to, or she had to go through over this past year, was like very challenging. So there was a huge mental component and barrier that we were looking at. And then lastly, running, she just really wasn't running consistently. She had access to the Ultra G at her physical therapy office and was on that thing somewhat consistently, but very inconsistently. So it was like she was getting this feedback of, I'm running and it feels good. And then I'm running at some random time again and it feels bad. And our brains have this negativity bias that if something is bad or something's not comfortable, or, someone tells us 10 times that we look beautiful and one person tells us that they hate our shirt, our brain is going to link onto that negativity and allow us to say, oh, I'm ugly and my clothes are the worst, So it's like, if she wasn't building the confidence with running, and that one run was informing her that she was just going to continue to be in pain. Plus her past was continuing to inform her that she was going to be in pain. So we needed to get a little bit more consistent with running to build the confidence and build the tolerance for her running capacity. So Discover phase, we needed to work on stability and progress to strength. We needed to work on her mental kind of like confidence. And then we also needed to work on consistency with running. So that was her Discover phase. Going into the Develop phase, this is when we're like, okay, these are the things that we need to work on. Like, let's work on it and see how it goes. Like, as a coach, one of the best things that my coach has ever done for me was telling me, Sarah, instead of having this preset plan, your previous 1 to 2 weeks is going to breathe and is going to curate your next 1 to 2 weeks. So I will never forget when I trained for my first 50K, I was like, I'm apprehensive because I do have a history of labral tear. And I know I have a little bit lower of a tolerance to running high volume and to speed work. So I'm nervous. And he was like, Sarah, like, I'm not going to just load you up so much and then have you be like completely flared up and irritated for multiple weeks on end. He's like, we're going to start here. And if that doesn't feel good, then we're going to scale. Like, we're going to scale back. We're going to change something. And that was when it really clicked for me. Like, oh my gosh, like, we don't need to have these like protocols or prefab plans set out for people. Like, what we really need is that 1 week is going to inform the next, is going to inform the next. And there's a million variables that we can play. That's why it's so fun to be a coach, is because I don't have to be so honed in on your like diagnostic principles and like your specific, like tissue, whatever that's irritated. Like, as a coach, it's really fun to be like, are you sleeping? Like, are you stressed at work? Like, how's running going? This, like, getting to kind of zoom out and look at someone from like a bigger perspective. And then like, if things go wrong, then refer to a physical therapist that's in their state that they can be like, okay, like, diagnostically, this is what I think is going on. And then we can confer and have this beautiful collaboration. And it's literally the best thing ever. So that's just, that's just what I think about that. If your providers aren't collaborating for you, then I don't know. I don't know what to say. Okay. So In the develop phase, this is when we're really honing in on the things that we needed to work on. For Amy specifically, she was going to physical therapy, I think 2 times a week at this point. And honestly, it was like she had been doing a lot of different exercises, but that's the thing. She'd been doing a lot of different exercises. It was heavy lifting, plyometrics. Like there wasn't this like specific repeatable recipe. So it was really hard to be like, well, are you making progress with those things or not? So for her, in her like kind of strength and stability program that we worked on from a coaching perspective, I was like, great to keep going to PT. Like, I love that. Like, do what they're telling you to do 100%. But like, okay, let's maybe do 2 things that are really specific. I think we started with 3 things. Let's start with 3 things that are really specific to where you're at now. So we worked on that single leg stability through a full range of motion. We worked on single leg stability and endurance through rotation. And then we also worked on like her plyometric control of being able to like land and control it like extremely well. And those were her like main things that we worked on in the beginning. We did them 2 to 3 times a week, depending upon her schedule. Like when she went to PT, like obviously we didn't want to like overload her if she was going to PT and doing these exercises, but it was like, we need to have it be like consistent and repeatable. I always say it's kind of like a baking recipe. Like if you are just kind of putting random things in, your cake, your cookies are going to taste really bad. But if you're like, okay, this is the thing that I need to put in, it's consistent, it's repeatable, you're always going to get chocolate chip cookies. But then if you want something that's a little bit different, like you want more chocolate in it, then it's like you just put a little bit more chocolate in it. You don't completely change the recipe every time. So for her, we honed in her strength plan. So it was really, really specific and repeatable. And as soon as things got too easy, or they felt like they needed progressing, or they needed to be more chocolate, we just added more chocolate, if you know what I'm saying. So that's what we did with her kind of strength programming. And then I'm actually going to skip to running instead of going to mental. So for running, honestly, all we did was just get her on a consistent plan. Like it wasn't anything crazy. I honestly think we started with 2 days a week of running. A lot of it was done on the Ultra G in the beginning because she was afraid. She was fearful. And the Ultra G is just like an anti-gravity treadmill. So it puts you at like a certain percentage of your body weight to allow you to train with having less impact through the muscles, joints, ligaments, cartilage, all of the stuff. So she wanted to train on that, which was personal preference. Great, amazing. I love that. I don't care. People can do whatever they need to do in terms of getting back that way. And we just had her do it very consistently. So I think we started with like, I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but like 2 times a week. Let's say we started with like maybe 10 to 20 minutes. I don't remember, but some specific thing of let's say 2 by 20 minutes. And that's where we had her start. And honestly, from there, it was that week of running, let's say it was 2 by 20, informed the next. If those 2 runs felt great, then it was like, perfect, amazing. Let's go ahead and have you do 1 by 25 and 1 by 20. And then we just kind of slowly progressed volume over time. And the nicest thing about this is that with progressing volume over time, it really allowed her, with having these consistent runs over time, it allowed her to build up her mental confidence. Like for her to have 2 runs a week that she got off the treadmill and was not having pain was rewriting her story in her brain that I can run comfortably. I can run confidently. I'm not always in pain after running. However, there are going to be times where potentially, like for some reason or another, it was sore. There just has been that scenario working with my clients, like flare-ups are not inevitable. And also, this was a huge win for us mentally. So kind of shifting to the mental side of the develop plan here was having a plan when things didn't go well was a huge way that we build up her mental confidence. So if we're putting the mental in 2 boxes now, running consistently, building her mental confidence, having a flare up, whether it was during running, after running, outside of running, having a specific plan, I call it like a flare up plan for that is going to build and did build her mental confidence. Having soreness from walking a ton or being really stressed at work and then trying to go for a run, whatever it was for her, having that flare up plan or that rescue plan was extremely invaluable because it was rewriting the story in her brain that this is it. I'm going back to square one. I'm in so much pain. There's nothing I can do, so on and so forth. And like quickly looking into like a rescue plan, I mean, it's so multifactorial, but honestly, it's looking at like, okay, what did it? Like, am I really stressed this week? Did I go into that run with more pain? Am I, just not fueling? Am I like completely exhausted? Did I like do a huge walk that day and then tried to go for a run after? Like, are factors in which pain is going to show itself is not just potentially because of like our tissue diagnosis. It can also be, or it is multifactorial of like why this is happening. So we're going in there, we're kind of investigating that. And then on the other end, we're having maybe 1 to 2 things that feel really good. Like maybe it's a specific exercise. Maybe it's sitting in a certain position for a certain period of time and then going for a walk. Maybe it's cycling for a certain period of time. Like just having something that is dependable, that is going to bring not only like the pain down, but also like the anxiety of it down. We're going to take a couple days off. And then when things are feeling better, then we're going to reattempt that run again and go for it that way. So having some sort of plan was insurmountable, was just invaluable to be able to allow her to mentally progress through this. And I just want to say that like flare-ups are just a part of the process. Like even if it's not a labral tear, I remember I've had an Achilles tendinopathy. Like that thing was the freaking worst. Okay. Like I had so many flare-ups. I had such terrible physical therapy for it. Like the person that I worked with, we're not even going to get into it, but like I had flare-ups from time to time and it was so painful and it was so annoying. And I wish I knew this concept of like having a rescue plan, or similarly, like I had a radiculopathy, which is like a nerve root compression in my neck for so many years, honestly, just from weird sleeping posture that I completely fixed with an amazing PT. But flare-ups from that thing were the freaking worst. And like, just having these things, having this rescue plan would have been amazing to be like, oh, I'm not like completely broken or screwed forever. Like this is just a momentary thing and we're going to be able to move on from here. So that's what we worked on mentally. And the other thing that I want to touch on from the running perspective, maybe the last thing that I'll touch on from the running perspective and kind of going into the mental thing as well, is like, let's call this running hygiene. Okay. So there are so many things that go into running hygiene. The first time I heard this, I was like, wait, what? But if we think about it, it's like, okay, how, like one of the kind of low hanging fruit is like, how close are you running together? Like, are you running Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then your recovery is like Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and maybe that's just like way too much for your hip in this stage? Maybe it might be better for your hygiene to be like, let's run Monday, Wednesday, Friday, Saturday, and have those days of recovery in between to allow yourself to recover as you're getting back to it. Maybe it's like a bevel on the road. Like I recently this past year moved, and my new route of running literally is number one on way harder surface. I used to have this like amazing packed gravel thing that I would run on, and it was phenomenal. And then when I moved, it was like, oh my gosh, I'm running on harder surface. And then number two, my old route used to be packed gravel, like flat with rolling hills. My new route is hard surface, like extremely hard surface, and a mile downhill and a mile uphill to be able to get home. So for me, it was a huge change in like, for like the first honestly, for the first month, I was like, wow, this was really hard. And then even for like the kind of last, third to fourth week of that first month that I lived here, I was like, my foot really hurts. Like I kind of started to develop a little bit of a tendinopathy. And I was like, it's because my running hygiene has changed. So what I actually did was, instead of 1 day a week, if I run 3 days a week, 1 day a week, I would drive down past the hill and I would just start running on like the flatter kind of rolling hill area. And that allowed my body, and then over time I kind of dampened out of that, but that actually allowed my body to like accumulate to acclimate to the new surface and kind of hygiene things that I need to do. And I worked on some specific like calf raises for my tendinopathy in my foot. And I have not had any symptoms since. So that is incredible. But with my athletes, I'm really looking at running hygiene of like what works best for you. Like sometimes people are like, I can't run every other day because it's best for me to run on the weekend. So I'm like, okay, then let's do like a Friday, Sunday situation. And then maybe you're like cross training another day in the week, or like maybe we could do like a Thursday, Friday, Sunday situation. And then like you have more time to recover during the week. Just simple things like that can really allow you to make a big difference without really having less or without having more time. Last thing with this is one of the big things that I worked on with Amy was was being flexible with her schedule. So if she needed to run, let's say 3 days a week by, I don't know, 30 minutes, it's like Monday. If she was feeling terrible from lack of sleep, had increased hip pain, whatever, then it's like, let's not run Monday. Like, let's do your exercises Monday, or let's do a walk Monday, or let's have a rest day Monday. And then Tuesday, if you're feeling better, then let's go for it. And then you can continue to get your volume in Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday, as opposed to your Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Like having that flexibility is going to really allow you to make progress without having to like completely take time off and feel derailed from your schedule. So looking at that, the develop section is it's my favorite section. It's my bread and butter. I like it. I'm so passionate about it. There's so much moving pieces with it, but my goal is to make it very simple for my clients. So it just feels like Monday, I do this, Tuesday, I do this, Wednesday, I do this. This is the progress that I make. If I feel amazing, I do this. If I feel terrible, this is my rescue plan. Like I want it to feel so simple for my clients. I want them to just not even have to worry about it. So quick review, develop for Amy specifically, we worked on stability and strength. Specifically, like we worked on kind of stability through full ranges of motion and then a little bit of plyometrics, just like working on her control. From a mental standpoint, we enacted a flare up or rescue plan. Also just trying to build confidence of getting her volume in, even if it wasn't on a rigid schedule. And then with the running phase, we really focused on running hygiene and having consistency. Okay. Having consistency. From there, we're pushing now into the deploy phase. Okay. So my client, Amy, she had a long develop phase. We worked together for, honestly, at this point, it's almost been 6 months that we have been working together because her goal was pretty big. So let's say at this point, she had gotten back to probably running like 3 by 30 to 45 minutes. And then she was like, well, my biggest goal this year is to be able to train for Boston. And so we kind of continued to work together longer than I normally do. Typically my programs are 3 months, but we wanted to expand and extend so that she can continue to build comfortably for the Boston Marathon. So we're going to call that like the deploy phase. Okay. The deploy phase for me and my clients is like when you're getting back to the thing that you want to get back to, when it's like, okay, like my goal is to get back to 3 to 4 days a week of running 30 to 60 minutes or 30 to 90 minutes or, training for Boston or whatever it is. It's like, let's do the thing and let's see how you tolerate it. Okay. So in the deploy phase, I'm thinking of 3 different things kind of going through those sections. And these are kind of the 3 things that we honed on with Amy specifically. Looking at her stability and strength, here we actually flip-flopped things. Okay. So for her, she has a couple stability things that we needed to just kind of like continue to fine tune. This was like really deep single leg squats. And then working on some rotational stability into the hip at like these end ranges, just to really make sure that she was like extremely stable, extremely controlled as she was going to go into these higher volume runs. So we focused on stability. And then we actually increased strength. So somewhere into the develop phase, we kind of had this crescendo into a little bit less stability and then more strength work. And then strength for her was looking like deadlifting, squatting, heel raises, just more kind of general yet specific to her strength that was maintaining the gains that she created with those underlying kind of foundational elements. And what we did for her was we dropped her program. Instead of doing her exercises 3 times a week, we dropped her to doing them 1 to 2 times a week, and then strength training 1 to 2 times a week. Also, for some of my clients, for most of my clients, I'll have them do at the end of the Empower Hip program, I'll have them do 2 days, 1 to 2 days of strength training, and then like maybe putting in like 1 to 2 accessory exercises, like those stability exercises, to just kind of keep things tidy as they're going. But because she was going into a marathon build, we are doing that, but also just being respectful of like, she has to kind of run and cross train a lot. So doing maybe 1 day of strength might be more feasible to her schedule. And that's what the deploy phase is. It's like trialing it, like trialing higher volume, trialing less stability work, trialing more strength training, and seeing how she does. Like just really generally seeing how she does at this marathon training threshold and making sure that she is thriving at that. And currently at this point, like that's kind of our sweet spot, and she's crushing it with that. From a mental perspective here, I feel like the biggest things that we're thinking of is just continuing to lean on past experiences of feeling really good. I think going into bigger workouts, it's really challenging to not be like, oh my gosh, I'm so nervous. Like, is this going to be painful? Like, I'm not sure. But I think pulling from past experiences is going to allow us to regain that confidence. And going into something feeling confident is infinitely going to increase our performance than if we're going into something nervous. Because if you're like, it's going to be painful, well, then guess what? It's going to be painful. Like your brain is powerful like that. And if you've had an injury for a long time, we really develop these quick pathways to get there quickly, meaning to get into pain quickly. And it's important that we are like kind of building and rewriting a new story. And then the last thing, looking at running specifically, for her at this point, she transitioned kind of from, instead of just like, we had like a short period of just kind of very consistent base building, but then we really needed to get like right into the Boston Marathon training block because time is, of the essence for that. For that, we started to program her with some higher volume as well as some higher cross training to kind of supplement, and then some like midweek kind of shorter runs with a little bit of strides, all things that she worked up to allow her to build the fitness that she needs to run Boston and complete it comfortably. One thing that I'll say with both the develop phase and the deploy phase with running specifically, one of my favorite things that we'll do, and this will also feed into mental as well as physical, is like have preemptive down weeks. So this might be common knowledge, but it also might not be, that like having a deload week every 2, 3, 4, even 6 is like kind of for more elite runners, we'll say, maybe more professional runners, is having a planned down week is going to allow your body to like preemptively recover. And I think this is especially important if we're someone who is like coming back from injury. One of my favorite quotes is that you don't necessarily get better, like you don't get stronger while weightlifting, is that you get stronger in the recovery period. Like think of it, or like same with running, you don't get faster like in the effort, you get faster with the recovery from it. I think weightlifting is a little bit easier to kind of think about this, but it's like, as I'm in there, I'm in the gym, I'm like pulling my muscle fibers apart, I'm like exposing them to relative trauma, and then they're not relaxing, but they're recovering over time. And then when I go to expose it to that same stimulus, it's like, oh my gosh, I've been here before, this is really comfortable, relatively. At least I'm like able to handle it. And then you're like, oh my gosh, I've leveled up and I've gotten stronger. Having deload weeks is not dissimilar, where it's like we're building, and then we're just having a cutback week. So it's like her body's not in constant stress of like building, needing to like acclimatize or acclimate to all of this, new stimulus that you're putting in, and you're kind of allowing the capacity to meet up to the loads that you are placing on it. Also mentally, it's just really nice to have a deload week. Like sometimes it's just, you get into that week, whatever it is, if it's week 3, if it's week 4, if you get sick, if you're traveling, whatever it is, like it's just nice to have those down weeks where you don't have as much pressure to be like, oh my gosh, I need to get all of these things in. If you miss a run, if you have to go shorter on a run, it's just honestly optimal and really perfect for exactly kind of what you're training for. So this is where Amy is. She is in the deploy phase, specifically training for the Boston Marathon. And I feel like just the biggest things that we looked at in her coaching performance and her coaching plan was getting really specific with not just like heavy strength training and plyometrics and all these fancy exercises and doing all these different things that we're seeing on Instagram, but just having like a very specific program to her, having it be number one, like efficient. So she knew that she could get through it in the time that she had, having it feel effective, where it's like, these are the things that I actually need to work on versus like I'm adding all of these new things all of the time because I don't know, it just feels like the right thing to do new things all the time. And that every exercise was kind of like progressed in a way that was meaningful to her. So, if she had gotten better at maybe doing that single leg squat through the full range of motion comfortably, really great form, 3 sets of 20. We weren't just going to keep adding repetitions. We actually just added intensity, meaning adding weight to it. And then therefore she's able to like maintain the gains she created with strength training. We were able to just do that for her. From a mental perspective, we really used her running and strength plan, as well as we used her running plan specifically to build confidence by like having confident runs. We used her rescue plan. So when things went, if she did get a flare up for some reason, she knew exactly what to do and built confidence by overcoming it quickly. And then also even mentally, we built confidence via her strength and stability plan. Like if she knew that her body could handle 3 sets of 20 single leg squats, 3 sets of 15, 3 sets of 10, 3 sets of 8 single leg loaded squats, plyometrics, all this stuff, then she was like, yeah, my body can handle the demands of running. We like kind of proved that to her brain. And then the last thing with running, we just worked on consistency, progression, deload weeks, and building confidence with doing it consistently. And again, now she's training for the Boston Marathon. She's been able to like reintegrate back into her run club, which is like such a win mentally. She's like a busy gal. She works full time, has a family, like does all of these things. And now it's like running gets to be like a piece of her life again, which overall is just super exciting. So if you're like, oh my gosh, Sarah, like this is what I need. Like I need someone who's going to tell me what to do, who's going to be like cheering for me every step of the way, who's like seen this before, all of the above. Feel free to check the link in the show notes for the Empower Hip Program application. Excuse me, I just literally choked. For the Empower Hip application, I'm going to be opening a new group cohort in April, but I do always offer 2 one-on-one spots. I'm going to have 2 in February, 2 in March. February is honestly already filling, but I will have 2 in March, and I would love to be able to walk you through this. This is honestly my joy of like allowing people to feel confident with running again. If you're like, this is my jam, this is what I need, fill out the application. I would love to. It'll link you to my free calendar. We can hop on a strategy call, see if this program would even be a good fit for you. And honestly, like I have people that I'm like, oh my gosh, you're an amazing fit. I also have people that I'm like, no, you're not a good fit. You need to be an acute PT. Like you need to be with somebody, and I will be more than happy to find someone in your area that feels maybe appropriate or helpful for you. So go ahead, check out the show notes for the application. If you guys have any questions, reach out to me in the comments, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all the stuff. I look forward to chatting with you soon and hope you guys have a great rest of your day.